All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition of the Conscious Approach channel on YouTube. Appreciate you for tuning in. My name is JV Wins. That is Dogon SS. Thank you for joining along with the tribe. We certainly appreciate the support. Do your boys a big old solid and hit that like and subscribe button if you're so inclined. Um, we do appreciate the support as we continue to crank out this logical content over here in this little corner of the internet of ours. With those pleasantries out of the way, we thank everybody for joining along with us for the ride, and we'll go ahead and get right into it for your garden variety social commentary for the week. And we are going to kick things off with what is, I guess, part two of the Joe Smith saga. So we touched on this story last week. Joe Smith is a retired NBA player, and he recently found out that his wife of 5 years, his wife whose name is Chavis, Chavis, started an OnlyFans account in order to bring in money so that she can maintain her lifestyle. Uh, Things weren't coming in the way that they used to. Checks weren't coming in. They have a lifestyle to maintain. The ship was sinking. And so she started OnlyFans to do what she needed to do to keep the money coming in. And apparently, she was a sex worker before they got married. She was in adult entertainment. She left the adult entertainment industry before she got married to Joe Smith. And Joe Smith was an NBA player who made in excess of $60 million throughout his career. But apparently, after retirement, it hasn't been as smooth of seas that they have been able to sail. It ain't looking as good as it used to. Money ain't coming in. So she started OnlyFans, and Joe Smith feels as though it's a stain on his name. He does not like the fact that she started an OnlyFans. And so last week we talked about the video that went viral in which she recorded their conversation with Joe Smith expressing his displeasure over his wife starting OnlyFans. And I think last week I was operating under the assumption that it was legit. But the point that I was making about it was that it's indicative of the way we have sort of transitioned in society to viewing sex working as just another job, right? So it's a normal job. And your take on it was that you hear all of that, but some of this smells fishy. You never know what's real and what's fake out here. So TBD, because we're going to see more to come from this. And you were correct, because there is more that has come from this. So
Wow.
she has been doing her press tour. She was recently doing an interview on TMZ explaining what has happened since that initial viral video, as well as explaining why she made this decision in the first place. So she is being given an ample platform to explain herself, which of course is no shock. And so what we are going to do is react to her logic behind the decision to start doing OnlyFans. So we'll go ahead and play this snippet here. It's not going to be the whole thing, but it is going to be a chunk of it that we do want to talk about.
And I came back here, thinking that with his persona and who he was, once we got together and I found out who he was, that it would only take off, other things. But, not everybody's hustle and drive are the same. And depression is a serious thing also. So, I've been just like, supporting and dealing and going through his trials and tribulations with him. I've started several businesses, I've been doing a lot, like, and I just figured out, I have a home in Cape Verde I'm trying not to lose, and a roof over here we're trying to maintain that we almost got kicked out of. So I just kicked in the drive and did what I had to do, and he won't do it. So I had to, and I'm sorry, you knew I was an adult video star when you met me. So if I would do anything for my own survival, then what makes you think that would change now? When I retired from the adult industry, I promised myself, if I don't sing, I don't eat. So when, my music career wasn't popping here when I left Germany and I stayed here for him, I figured, I would, start a business. I started a puppy friend social club. It's a dog sitting business. And then COVID happened and that screwed everything up. I have a moving company, that he actually works for me. Like he works for my moving company. You know, I'm tired of being the one to figure shit out. So I figured it out the best way I know that can maximize the money that needs to come in because I'm tired of living like, you know, I'm tired of
Yeah.
living minimal, It's
Okay, um,
Poor Joe.
so if you are to buy any of her explanation, she did it out of survival. She did it in order to survive, and Joe's not holding up his end of the bargain. Essentially, is what she's saying. And so I have to do what I have to do to keep this money coming in. And she mentioned all of her other businesses that she started: pet grooming, massages, and all this other stuff. She used to be a singer, yada yada yada. So elsewhere in that interview, we didn't necessarily play that during this clip here, but she also says that Joe left the house and is living like staying with his sister or something for the time being or something like that. And she had all these alligator tears. So you know, she was either showing contrition or she was making it look like she was contrite for the purposes of public opinion. But what do you make of her explanation as to why she started her OnlyFans?
It makes sense to me from her worldview. So that seemed like a pretty authentic frustration that she had going on there. It sounds like she's had plenty of conversations with herself and with Joe about this topic. And she reached her tipping point and she said, hey, basically, if I got to go back to tricking, I will. This is my last resort, air quotes. But I'll take it there if I have to. And well, it sounds like, as you mentioned, Joe was sleeping on the job and she took matters into her own hands. But it sounds like, from her frustrations there, that she's been taking matters into her own hands. So at that point, Joe lost control a long time ago. So if he were in a position of funding her lifestyle, she would not go rogue and feel like it's okay to do her own thing. So yeah, it sounds like he lost control a while ago. Honestly, ever since the NBA dollar stopped, that's when he lost his control, if he even had some then. And yeah, she's just taking matters into her own hands, but she's just honestly reflecting, today's mindset of what's going on with Western women. And I don't want to have to be in my masculine, but if you're not being masculine enough, then I'll be the masculine one around here. And she did that to him, and this is how it looks. So sad story, man. But it sounds like he lost control a long time ago, and this is just the receipt of it, if you will. The aftermath, the byproduct of him losing control years ago. So how do you feel about this situation, man? This is a wild dynamic. Joe, part two.
Yeah, I largely agree with you. It does look that way. And one thing that women today can do, if they can effectively pull it off, is they can certainly look like they are making a decision that is best for them if they can paint the picture that the man isn't manning enough. And like that's a real popular tactic these days, is to throw men under the bus for not being enough of a man. Um, Even though that is a largely subjective
Mm-hmm.
term, because what does that mean to you? Because for a lot of women, they choose men who aren't masculine in the first place. And so the idea of you being enough of a man so that I can play my feminine role takes on certain meanings, because for a lot of chicks that just means, are you making enough money? Not are you actually manning enough, but are you making enough money? I don't know. I don't live in their household. So I don't know what measures or lack thereof Joe Smith has taken in order to continue to uphold his end of the bargain in terms of their marriage and quote unquote man up. For all we know, he's doing what he's doing, but she is nevertheless finding what he is doing to be unsatisfactory. And I don't know what it is. So I'm not necessarily taking his side all the way. As a matter of fact, I more so, like I said last week, blame him because you knew what you were getting yourself into and you married the woman anyway. So you kind of have to accept responsibility for this particular fallout. If you did not want to run the risk of having to deal with this kind of thing, you should have chosen a different woman. So ultimately, this is on Joe Smith. However, within the context of her doing what she needs to do because she's tired of having to figure shit out,
Mhm.
because that infers that Joe can't figure it out, right? And if Joe can't figure it out, then what that means is this man's not doing good enough for me and for us and for our household. Uh, that's something that she's going to be able to effectively employ because it's a popular tactic nowadays. A lot of narratives and conversations with respect to relationships in the modern day tend to center around a man's competency and what he is able to do and what he is unable to do in order to keep that woman happy. A lot of this largely falls along the lines of income. So, we code everything in terms of man doing this and man doing that and what you can and cannot do. But really, what it is about income. And so for a lot of women nowadays is if you don't bring in the amount of income that is satisfactory for me, then you're not doing enough to bring enough to the table. Even though you might be satisfying every other requirement in terms of what it actually means to be a man within a relationship or a marriage. So a lot of this is subjectivism, and it just depends on what actually goes on in their household, which none of us are privy to. But there's a lot of gray area in this. But moreover, I just think that she's employing a very effective. I think she's employing a very effective tactic because I think it's quite simple nowadays to say I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm doing it because I have to because he couldn't do it. I think that's a popular ploy, and it's easy to paint men into this corner of being insufficient, inadequate, not good enough. And so at that point, you're well within your right as a woman to make whatever decision that you need to make to keep everything going, even if that includes being a sex worker. And I harken back to this conversation around masculine and female energy. Um, I've heard this often. Not everyone believes this, but
Mm.
there are a decent amount of women who believe that they would be feminine if their man was masculine enough that it required them to only live in their feminine energy. And that the only reason why they exude masculine energy and live in their masculine space is because they are dealing with a man or men in their lives who are unable to step up to the plate and be masculine. So the women feel as though they have to be masculine for both them and the man. I've heard that said a lot, as if to suggest that if the man was more masculine, you'd be more feminine. And I fundamentally disagree with that. I think you either are feminine or you're not. Um, and when push comes to shove, if you are embracing your femininity because that's who you are at your core and it's in your nature, then you'll just do a much better job of choosing a partner or a life mate who exudes the kind of masculinity that you're looking for because that's what is going to take to sustain you, because you're unable to um, exude masculinity because it's not a part of who you are. And so for a lot of these women who do these things, it's not because the men are effeminate or not masculine enough. It's because in your nature you're a masculine woman. And I think that this chick seriously, and I think that this chick might be a masculine woman
Oh yeah.
because you're incorporating this rationale in order to substantiate your decision to become a sex worker. But if you were really doing all of these businesses and you were at all of these things you had popping off, why resort to the sex work? Maximize the opportunities on these various other business ventures that you have going on that you speak so highly of. But you resort to doing the sex work because you know it's easy and because you know that there's a very low barrier to entry, and that you can get successful because there's a marketplace for it, unfortunately, which dictates that there is an easy way for you to be able to come up without having to put much work in other than just be a woman who looks good. So um, there's a lot of angles to it, obviously, but at the end of the day, we don't know what Joe Smith was doing or not doing in order to do what he needs to do in order to keep that ship afloat. And for all we know, she could have looked at what he was doing, as valiant as his effort may have been, as unsatisfactory. And so the question is, what does she look at in terms of what you need to do in order to keep things coming in? And what is the likelihood that she is going to look at whatever it is that you're doing, no matter how hard you're working, as not good enough? Because at her core, she's the type of woman who is liable to just do OnlyFans anyway.
Right. No, I agree with that 1,000. And it's kind of like she does have, you know, that whole, hey, you knew what you was getting into when you got with me, says it all there for me, in the sense that, this was gonna happen anyway. It was just, a matter of time, like you said, an excuse. And what better excuse than, we're on hard times and we got to make ends
Right.
meet.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's her badge to go do what she needs to do most. Hey, look, man, you can't listen, man. Whatever's going on with him, wherever you found him at, that's what's going to end up happening. So there is no such thing as reformed or, reborn. It's just a matter of time of when it's going to go back, because they can't get the itching. They gotta go do it.
Yeah. And they see the money and the attention that these other chicks doing and are making. They can't help themselves.
Yeah, man. So I don't know where Joe is at in his life to openly marry a sex worker. I'm pretty sure he was used to living in that lifestyle while he played ball, and got a little too close to that life maybe, and took one home one of these days. And but yeah, bro, you get what you pay for. And in this situation here, as we mentioned, yeah, this really does feel like, this was going to happen anyway at some point. The money is too tempting. And when you used to rap, bruh, and you see that the rapper's got a new little thing going, and you go, man, I can get in the game and make money doing this. You're gonna try your hand. Like, you're not too old for rap then. You was too old for rap, whatever. Yeah, now it's like, oh, they still getting bags out here. What's that lady, that comedian lady we had covered?
Lunel.
Yeah,
Lunel.
goddamn Lunel out here. All right. Areola's touching her kneecap, still getting racks on OnlyFans. So she was like, yeah, right. I ain't down to my kneecaps yet. Let me go out here and get this bag. So, hey, man, it's the way of the world. Like I said, I felt like Joe lost control, a long time ago. But honestly, was there any control in this situation with a lifestyle like that? You know what I'm saying? That she clearly wanted to get back to all along. So, he didn't really stand much of a chance anyway. So this is very, I mean, it's unfortunate that guys get themselves into these situations and get blindsided by it. It's you got what you got, man. And when you're signing up for something, because sometimes people could sign up for that thing that you already know, all right, it went through an accident, but it was still only one previous owner, and it's a couple things on the engine, but we're good. And it's okay, well, if you want to drive off the lot with this and you're on your way to work one day and it wants to do what it does because you bought it from where you bought it from, you can't be mad at the dealership. You can't be mad at anything. It was your purchase. So if you know that, then at that point, it's like, hey, that's why I got my AAA card. Then, okay, then roll on, brother. Marry your woman of the streets. But if you think that this is going to change just because there's a ring, I mean, I think the evidence is already out there. Yeah. So yeah, this is exhibit A, yet again, for everybody out there that may be confused and thinking that they can turn her around. I don't think it's happening, champ. Especially with all these ways that they can get attention online. it's way too tempting for them, and it's only a matter of time. So sorry to hear this stuff, man.
Yep, absolutely, man. And I'll reference what I said last week. You know, because I'm largely with you in that these days, with the way that the internet works, you don't know what's a hoax, a marketing scheme. You don't, but you don't know what's a hoax, a marketing scheme, and what's real and actually authentic. You don't know if you don't know if they're genuinely going through some strife as a result of this situation, and she's just soulless enough to put it on Front Street and record it, or whether this is a part of some marketing scheme that they are both involved in. You really don't
Mhm.
know. I largely agree with that. But what I do think is something that is happening is we are desensitizing ourselves to how we perceive sex work. I really do believe that. And I do think that we are gradually getting to a point where doing OnlyFans is just like going to work part time at a job somewhere. It's the same. We're looking at sex work as a job to the point where if you're in a relationship with somebody and they want to make more money, but they don't want to do real estate on the side, or they don't want to bartend on the side, or they don't want to serve tables, they don't want to work a register, they don't want to work in a department store, whatever. Traditional quote unquote jobs, right? They don't want to do that, but they want to start OnlyFans and start doing sex work. We're getting to a point where you're going to have to understand and accept this and really perceive it to be part-time work and not something that you look at with a side eye because it's sex work. That's where we're getting to. And her reaction in that first video of, why are you acting like this? I did this so that I can keep the money coming in. That is going to be the reaction in the coming years and generations for a lot of people is, why are you getting frustrated because I'm doing sex work? This is my side job. It's no different than her looking at you weird because you're getting frustrated at her for picking up a side job at Chick-fil-A. You wouldn't get mad at that, right? Well, this is kind of how we're looking at it the same way with sex work. You can't get mad at that either. It's all just a job. That's
Nah.
this weird world that we live in now. That's what we're coming to. So
Uh,
um, you just got to vet as best you can. But yeah, I'm with that. I think that this is a justification, the ends meet thing, and I think that there is a strong likelihood that she would have been doing it regardless. Because at the end of the day, I just think it's in her nature, just like it's in a lot of these women's nature to just do this. And you either have to be cool with it or not, because they're going to do it anyway, and they're going to get what they want. So sucks, Joe. Too
yeah.
bad for you, bro. You know.
Get well soon, man. Well, I'm sick for you, bro.
Yeah.